Good morning, everyone. I'm Prathna Karthikeyan, the Program Officer for Galleries at DakshinaChitra. I can't be more delighted than today to welcome all of you to the discussion titled Inheritance of the Madras Line, an exploration of the legacy of the Madras School of Art. Today's discussion is planned in connection with the exhibition titled Teachers and Students of the Madras School of Art, which will be on display at the Varija Gallery till the 19th of this month. Keeping in mind the relative silence and the lack of awareness of the Madras art movement, we thought this exhibition would provide us an opportunity to explore the eclectic body of work that were formed under the ideologies that form the Madras line. We are showing 22 artists in the exhibition and from the immediate independence era to the present. This discussion is the first of many steps we'll be taking at DakshinaChitra to keep our attention on the Madras school. The rich history and the artists that have emerged from it warrant more systematic study, research, interpretation, and frankly, more enjoyment. We are privileged to have Dr. Ashrafi Bhagat, who has almost single-handedly created an aura of work on the Madras school. In conversation with her are three artists, Ms. Benita Persial, Mr. Aprajitha Nadimulam, and Mr. Vijay Pachimani, all alumni from the School of Art at different points of time. I'm sure this is going to be an engaging and an enriching conversation. Thank you. Over to you, Ms. Ashrafi.
And at the outset, I would like to thank Anita for thinking of this brilliant idea of teacher and students and inheritance of the Madras line. Thank you for that. To begin with, basically, one needs to understand the element of line. And why are we today calling it as the inheritance of the Madras line? It's a line which is an Indian in character, as many of the artists within the Madras art movement disputed it and says we are all Indian. But at the same time, they were able to bring in that quality of line, that element of line. Why are we calling it today the inheritance of the Madras line? And of course, we have three alumni of the College of Arts with us today. Maybe they'll be able to enlighten us. But what I want to basically tell you is that it is an Indian line that gets derived from Ajanta murals, two miniature traditional paintings of Kangra, Basholi, Mughal miniatures, etc. Folk art tradition, the line is very much predominant there. And why is it a Madras line? This is because Madras School of Arts and Crafts, which was established in 1850, the first art school under the colonizers. And it was started as an independent enterprise. I need to give you a little bit of the background, please bear with me. And it was started as a private enterprise by a colonel in the army. His name was Dr. Alexander Hunter. And it was for his own, he had his own agenda, thinking that he would make this into a school whereby craft will be produced, because that was one thing which the colonized realized was very much the strength of India. So on the basis of that, he started the school saying that the locals or the people lacked, better values in craft and art, so they need to be educated on that. Now, this was an agenda with which the school was started. And as a matter of fact, Madras school became the first to be established, followed by Calcutta in 1854. 1957, J.J. School of Art, Jamshedji Jijibai College, Jijibai established the J.J. College of Art as we know of it today. 1867, Lahore Art College was established. And in 1907, in Lucknow, the art college was begun. Now, if we look at it, Bombay and Calcutta seem to have produced artists from the outset. From the outset, the artists were being produced and they were getting commissions and they were making a living. But when it came to Madras, remember it's a Madras presidency. When it came to Madras and when it came to Lahore, there seems to have been no artists which were produced there. The simple reason was that it did not attract many, what I would say, according to the British, the intelligent artists. And so there were mainly craftsmen or an artisan's children who were joining. So realizing this fact that it's only the artisans' children who were joining the institution and they were getting a stipend, it became more of a craft school. So much of the commissions by the British were executed by the Madras school, by the way, if you should know. And hence for a very, very long time, until 1930, it remained only as a craft-oriented school where every kind of product in wood, gold, stained glass, weaving, all of this metal work, all of this was produced by the Madras school. It was only in 1930 that D.P. Roy Chowdhury was appointed as the first Indian artist principal. And the last of the administrator who left, Hadway, he said, it doesn't require, in order to make a wheel, you don't require an artist, you only require an artisan. So this was the attitude. And already a distinction was made that, and this was already established by James Mill in his book, History of British India, where he said that if it is art, then you require intelligence. If it is craft, then you only require skill. So it was this dichotomy which was there, and that is how it continued for a long time, and this is what basically established the curriculum of the Madras School of Art. Now, the craft sections which were there, it continued to exist in the Madras School. Even E.B. Havel, who was the principal of the Madras School for quite some time, decided that this is an institution which does not require any kind of fine arts as such, but it only required that the craft sections be reinforced and that more attention should be paid for it. 1930, DP established fine arts with two streams. One was painting and the other one he called it as modeling, which was sculpture. And this continued. Then KCS Panikar took over as the head, and DP became the first artist principal who continued to administer the school for almost 28 years. 1930 to 1957 when KCS Panikar took over. Now, KCS Panikar was just not an artist. He was astute. He was a very astute administrator. He was a writer. And he was many things rolled into one. He had a foresight, he had a vision, and he had this intuitive insight into picking out artists who were very good and to whom he would say, you can become somebody someday. Now, KCS was the one who realized that the craft which is there has to be made use of by the artists, and so he made it mandatory as part of the curriculum that every student has to take one craft. And that is how, the earlier students who were there in the 60s, 70s, they had to take a craft. And it is the craft, if you know the basic characteristics of the craft, it is design oriented. It needs to have a line to create the contours. It needs a line to create what is to be made into a design. So they studied various temple art. They made templates of that. There are books, where the students and the teachers have copied motifs from the temples and they were collated into books. And those books are still there in the College of Arts. I don't know if it is still there, but when I researched, it was very much there. So this is the basic aspect. Now, KCS in the 1960s, when he had a group of students, and the artists within India were as third world as a third world nation and from the margins to react creatively into internationalism, as it was then called, as we call it globalization today. It was internationalism. They had to prove their identity as Indians. So that was a post-colonial notion, and they had to prove that. In order to do that, the Indians actually, the Indian artists in the 1960s, they went through a identity crisis. K.C.S. Panikkar also felt the same when he had held a show in London, where he was told the same thing, that his works are equivalent to some of the greatest artists of modern Europe, but where is the Indianness in his works? And this set him thinking, and he was influenced by Jamini Roy, and he began to look at local traditions, the vernacular traditions, and that is how he developed his idea of what I call it as nativism. He says, look at the local crafts, art, including the classical traditions of the 5 dynasties in the south, Pallavas, Cholas, Pandyas, Vijayanagar, Nayaks, etc., and look at folk and tribal. It can be reinvented, it can be re-archaeologed, it can be, recontoured, because tradition is something which never dies. And this can be again rejuvenated, and that is how, when they went into the various traditions, including the craft traditions, the folk art tradition, they found that it was the line which was so much the basic aspect and fundamental to all of these traditions. So when the craft was developed and when the regional traditions were excavated, they found that this is what is basically, which is very, very important. And ultimately we find that within the Madras group of artists, if you're looking at the constellation of the artists, all of them have developed their art through line. So today we are discussing the inheritance of the Madras line. It is basically the inheritance of the Indian line, but it depends how you are contextualizing it, and we are contextualizing this in terms of the 60s and the 70s, particularly very critical, very crucial period for Indian art. So that is how we have today the inheritance of the Madras line. And now we begin, I think, start by asking the fundamental question that it says teachers and students, but if it is teachers and students, you all have shared art education. So who were the teachers, who influenced you as far as, I won't say as line is concerned, but teachers who influenced you into creating works that you are creating today, which has the resonance of that line very much. So it's to all three of you.
See, actually, when this teachers and students exhibition, if you see, there's the whole tradition of the Madras School. So teachers, if you ask me, if I would take the teachers who were present during during my student days. But there are also teachers who were, who are the past teachers. But their influence was very strong when I went to college by early 90s. So I would take the entire galaxy of artists, Madras School of Artists, where you would sort of read them. Then they are all my teachers in that sense. So say for example, say Santan Raj's drawing of this prodigal son. So these are very seminal works, by Munuswamy or Dhanapal, K.C.S. Panikkar. So these influences were very strong when you already know their works, and then they are also in some way they are your teachers. We are the inheritors, or if I could use that word. And there were also some good teachers when I was there in the college, but not many in the sense, Santan Raj had retired by 89, and Munuswamy sir had also retired by then, and Anthony Das sir was when I joined, he was there for 1 month and then he retired. So there was like lots of those stars, by then when I went in the 90s, they were not there, like they were all retired. But still you had, discussions on them. There are, what they would have spoken in class is reflected back. So there's lots of these indirect informations that you get, and then, sort of you build your ideas on it. And all the teachers were also they were students of these masters. So that was, so when I was a student, directly like only Ebenezer, he late in 1995, when I was in the 4th year, I guess, he became the teacher. And he was a student of Santan Raj. So otherwise, the college has its regular mechanism of doing some drawings, portrait and full figure. But the question of what those are academic things, where you develop your skills. But when you start to sort of express yourself, and then you need a better help. When you wanted to create a language, or you wanted to articulate your visually, articulate your the sort of aesthetic that you are going to develop. Then there is, of course, there is a need for a teacher to be there at that juncture. So I think Ebenezer was there for 3-4 months, and it helped me to he helped me to sort of create drawings and paintings, which I was able to express myself through. So this is how it was. Okay. So sorry, I also got distracted. Ebenezer, yes. So I mean, as a direct teacher, but of course, there are also all these indirect teachers in the college. I'm just talking about the education in the college. But of course, you meet people outside the college, and for example, I lived in Cholamandal Artist Village. I just moved to Cholamandal Artist Village when I joined the college. So it was quite new. I was quite new to Cholamandal. So this, you meet Douglas, you meet all these artists in Cholamandal, and of course my father was also an artist, if I have to, but not as a teacher, but I was able to see lots and lots of paintings and lots of books before I joined college. So all this helped me in the college. So that's how the journey began. Yeah, thanks.
Introduce the speakers here. We have Benita, Aparajitan and Vijay. Benita is a nationally and internationally acclaimed artist. She's started with painting, but today she's more of a sculptor and an installation artist. She makes use of organic materials. She only uses organic materials, incense like myrrh and frankincense, bark of the trees, cinnamon, then oils, various kinds of oils, reclaimed teak wood, sometimes tea decoction, because she uses those tea stains, and exclusively works only in organic material, never the synthetic material. And her art is located in her Christian faith, in its iconography, in its metaphors. And she brings in the duality of life and death, fragility and permanence, time and space. All of these play a very important role. And for her, and she engages with various aspects of Christian religion. She's an ascetic artist, I believe so. Very much an ascetic artist, but a very powerful one. Not only in her concepts, but in her use of materials particularly, and the process of creation, because she uses her hands, and she loves to use her hands. And if I may quote her saying that, she says when she touches any material, it goes first to her head, then to her heart, and sometimes it even touches her navel. So that's the sensitivity of Benita to the various materials. She's a very tactile artist. Very sensitive, and all her works are through a process which takes a long time, and there's no permanence to it. And that's her metaphor of life, that nothing in life is permanent, it's all fragile, it's all vulnerable. And she brings in this kind of a contrast of the divine concept of Christ, who is permanent. It's a very beautiful concept, and I love her works. I remember her one show in Spaces, where she had a show, the light, the installation, the concept. It moved me emotionally. I was almost teared up when I, saw her works. They were so powerful. That's the kind of works which she produces. And she's being represented by some of the most important galleries in India. And of course, she was invited to be part of the Kochi Biennale in 2014. And the works there she created, I still remember, in the Pepper House. Very, very powerful works, and they are all fragmented. Fragmented, parts of the bodies, again a reflection of the metaphor of Christian faith, of how Christ dies on the cross, and the suffering, the pain, and that's the kind of process she goes through in making her works. A brilliant artist, an intelligent artist, I would say, to that Benita. So welcome, Benita. Yeah. Of course, Aparajiten is, I must mention that for Benita, artistic genes are coded. She is the niece of the very famous South Indian artist, a seminal artist of the Madras art movement, A.P. Santanaraj. She is the niece, so it comes to her as part of her inheritance. Similarly, Aparajiten also is a sign of her artistic icon, namely K.M. Adimulam, one of the seminal artists of the Madras art movement who made a notable contribution. Why? Because Adimulam, sorry, I'm just using the word Adimulam without the prefixes of Mr. But, he started off with his black and white ink drawings and then suddenly moved to complete abstraction. And he was successful there. Now, he comes from, so he also has the coded artistic genes in him. But Aparajiten's works are very different. He says that I can transform any experience into an image. He's, of course, a very empirical artist. He is also brilliant, unfortunately not so much in painting now, but more in administration, art education, etc. But I've seen his works. They are fragmented. There is no concept of time in his works. His works, if again you see, are a kind of, floating in space. And this perhaps may reflect, his early experiences in the house where he saw so much of paper, he saw so much of paint, and which he could just pick up and, start drawing or doing whatever he wanted. So his works are also very strongly, powerfully, conceptually driven. A brilliant artist, I would say, a thinking artist. He did his graduation here in the College of Arts, but his master's in Baroda. And that Baroda influence remains very strong in him because he's a very strong figurative artist. He uses the figure and he abstracts them in his personal way, and that's the kind of a visual language he has. So, welcome Aparajiten for this. Of course, we have Vijay, a very young artist, again a brilliant artist, very powerful his works are, but he doesn't come from any artistic background. And that is where, I would like to give the credit that he had to struggle to become an artist because his parents were not at all for him becoming an taking up a career like this, because it would not make him financially independent, only dependent. But he fought, and he says that this is his only aim, because from a very young age he used to keep drawing wherever he could find a space. And finally, he decided that he would take up, his parents agreed, and he came to Madras. He came to Chennai, I would say, and he joined the College of Arts. In college, he actually wanted to do painting. Yeah, he wanted to join for sculpture, but they gave him printmaking. But that's where, Vijay, where you can see him as an artist. He did not bother about the medium. He learned the sculpture, but whenever he got an opportunity, he would be, attending printmaking, rather walking into the printmaking studios and, watching students there, including one, she was a Fulbright scholar and she had come to demonstrate, particularly for the fourth year students. And as Vijay says, the enthusiasm shown by the fourth year students was zero, and his enthusiasm was 100% because he was one of the first to be there every day to to participate in that making process which was happening. So Vijay that way, starting from graduating in something and then getting into printmaking was a process for him, but he never gave up. He started doing those prints from while he was as a student. Today, if you are looking at his works, it's amazing the kind of prints he makes, though not trained as a printmaker. His prints are 5 feet by 4 feet or 6 feet by 4 feet. You know, those are the kind of prints he makes, and very detailed, extremely detailed. And it's not that, you know, he just stuck to printmaking, but he moved on using the technique or the medium of printmaking into sculpture. And sculpture, to all of these, you know, he brought in his very strong concept of the environment. He is very much interested in environment, and empirical artist, you know, whose experiences only you will find in his works. To a large extent also autobiographical in the way he communicates, especially the latest show which he had at Art House was really touching, very moving in the way he brought in the 5 elements and how he chooses ordinary subjects and makes them into metaphors of life and conveys it to us. So even for a viewer, it becomes very easy to engage with his works. So another brilliant artist we have here. So you have 3 brilliant artists sitting here. You are lucky to be encountering them, and you have the opportunity later to ask questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. So it's about, when it comes about teachers, the very first day I had very good opportunities to see when I entered the college. Mr. Dakshinamurthy was working. That was the first encounter I had, because it was very interesting to see him every day working. As a fresher student, seeing teachers working all the time is very, very energetic to see the teacher working, because that was one thing I admired till I came out of the college, because when you go a little early to college, he'll be working. When you come out a little late from the college also, he'll be working. During the class session, he will be with us. Like, he's the one who made us very inspiring artist for the entire students, for us, like the batchmates. We always talk about this particular artist. And also, I was in the printmaking as well. When I was in my bachelor's, I was given printmaking. So since I was only girl in the class, mostly the entire studio used to be mine. So Mr. Raman used to be working all the time. He'll be drawing and drawing and drawing. But whereas this studio assistant called Kodanda Raman, he only taught us how to print. So he made us understand how to wet the paper, how to roll the paper, what is the temper of the machine, you know, how to wipe the color, how to apply the color, everything he taught us. So it's a kind of, because he worked for several teachers and students. So I had this kind of experience. So for me, the teacher became varied in the college. And also we had a very wonderful seniors at the time who always talk about their experience with their different teachers and different artists. So that kind of a mixed sense of experience I had. As soon as I came out of the college, I started working individually, and my carpenter, he was also my senior in the college called Tyagarajan. We used to sit hours together with him and work with him for my work, you know, frames and everything. He also became a kind of a teacher. So the teachers were different. And also it's once called like how you start your see your teacher. And also when I was in my first year, Walson was there to demonstrate how to do a mold for the third year. So me and my friend Muttukadu used to go and peek his class. So next day onwards he invited, no, come and stay with us. So we started assisting him then very next day onwards. So we had a very different experience of how we were in IPC, but we started working in the third year, and we just had this fun and mixing plaster and working with him and everything. So that was a kind of mixed experience I had with the different people. And so of course later I started connecting through the work, a particular works, not a person, but through the works I've been this experience with the different people. I cannot name because it's a huge list. There are craftsmen, there are artisans in that, so it's varies because my teachers are from everywhere. Because I used to teach lots of kids, I used to learn from them as well. So it is a mixed kind of learning I'm getting till today. So it is that kind of experience. But I had a very beautiful experience in the college, that 7 years, which made me to understand I have to go back to work. Because all the 7 years I was just experiencing the space and I was practicing the techniques or what they taught us. But the space made me, when I came out of the space, that space made me to realize that I want to become an artist. So that kind of experience, the space also, the vibration also gave. So the space also made me to understand. So the space also became a teacher for me. So all that I'm saying, this institution, the sense of the institution also made me to realize what I wanted to do. So.
Good morning. ஸோ என்னென்னா நான் காலேஜ் ஆஃப் ஆர்ட்ஸுக்குள்ளே வரும்போது ஒரு செட் ஆஃப் பீப்புள்ஸ் வாட்டர் கலர் பண்ணி ஃபஸ்ட் இயரில் டிஸ்பிளே பண்ணுவாங்க. அது யார் அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ராஜசேகர் அப்படின்ட்டு ஒரு சீனியர் அண்ணா இருக்கார், அவரோட ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ். ஸோ அவங்களுக்கு கூட நான் கனெக்ட் ஆகணும் அப்படின்ட்டு நான் அவ்வளோ ட்ரை பண்ணியிருக்கேன். மீன்ஸ் என்னென்னா நிறைய ரேகிங் நடக்கும் காலேஜுக்குள்ளே, செம ஜாலியாக இருக்கும். அந்த ரேகிங் தான் என்னென்னா சீனியர் கூட பயங்கரமாக கனெக்ட் பண்ண வச்சுச்சு என்ன. ஸோ அதில் தான் என்னென்னா அவரோட கனெக்ஷன் கிடச்ச பிறகு என்னென்னா காலேஜோட பிரின்சிபல் சந்துரு சார் அந்த டைமில் இருக்காங்க. ஸோ அவர் என்னென்னா ஒரு செட் ஆஃப் ட்ராயிங்ஸ் நிறைய பண்ணிகிட்டே இருப்பார், நிறைய ஸ்டடி மூமெண்ட்டாக நிறைய கனெக்ட் பண்ணிகிட்டே இருப்பார் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கிட்ட. இப்போது ஸ்கல்ப்சர் செக்ஷன் போனோன்னா அங்கே ஒரு செட் ஆஃப் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் பயங்கர ரிலீஸ்மாக ஒரு ட்ராயிங்கை அப்படியே ஸ்கல்ப்சராக கனெக்ட் பண்ணுறது. ப்ளஸ் இதே டெக்ஸ்டைல் டிசைனுக்குள்ளே போனோன்னா ட்ராயிங்கான கனெக்ஷன் நிறைய அவரோட பீரியட் ஆஃப் இதில் நிறைய நான் பார்க்க ஆரம்பித்தேன். ஸோ அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் பிரிண்ட் மேக்கிங் செகண்ட் இயரில் பிரிண்ட் மேக்கிங் உள்ளே போகும்போது ராதாகிருஷ்ணன் சாரோட இன்ஃப்ளூயன்ஸ் எனக்கு நிறைய இருந்தது. அவர் நிறைய டீச் பண்ணிகிட்டு இருந்தாங்க. ஸோ அஃப்கோர்ஸ் அக்கா சொன்ன மாதிரி இந்த கோதண்டராமன் அவர் அங்கே அந்த டைமில் இருந்தாங்க. ஸோ அவர் என்னென்னா நிறைய ஒரு எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் இருக்குது, நிறைய பேர் கூட ஒர்க் பண்ணி ஒரு பிரிண்ட்டை எப்படி எடுக்கிறது அப்படின்றது ரொம்ப ஈஸியாக இருக்குது அவருக்கு. ஸோ அவருக்கு கூட நிறைய விஷயங்கள் கற்றுக்கிட்டு ஸோ காலேஜ்லேருந்து அந்த கேரியர் முடிச்சுட்டு அப்படியே வெளியே லலித் கலா வரும்போது தான் என்னென்னா எனக்கு லார்ஜ் ஸ்கேல் ஆஃப் பிரிண்ட் நான் பண்ண ஆரம்பிக்கிறேன். ஸோ அது எங்கே இருந்துன்னா இப்போ மார்ஷியா நெப்லெட்டுன்ட்டு ஃபுல் ஃப்ரைட் ஸ்காலர் யூகேலேருந்து வந்திருந்தாங்க. ஸோ அவங்க கூட கனெக்ட் பண்ணி ஒர்க் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சு. ப்ளஸ் அதுக்கு பிறகு எல்கேல நான் ஒர்க் பண்ண ஆரம்பித்தேன். ஸோ எல்கேல ஒர்க் பண்ணும்போது தான் பழனியப்பன் சார் அவரோட இன்ஃப்ளூயன்ஸ் மீன்ஸ் அவரோட ஒரு எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் நிறைய ஷேர் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. ஸோ பிரிண்ட்டை எப்படி கேரி பண்ணணும், பிரிண்ட்டோட குவாலிட்டி என்னவாக இருக்கணும், ஒரு பேப்பர்ஸை நம்மளோட கையில் இருக்க அந்த ஒரு பேப்பர் மேலே படும்போது அது ஃப்யூச்சரில் எச் ஆகும். ஸோ அதை எப்படி கேரி பண்ணணும், அந்த மாதிரி விஷயங்களெல்லாம் ஒரு சீனியரோட கனெக்ஷன்லேருந்து தான் அப்படியே கனெக்ட் பண்ணி எடுத்துகிட்டு வந்தேன். அதுக்கு பிறகு ஒரு ஆர்டிஸ்ட்டாக எனக்கு நிறைய கொஸ்டின்கள் வர ஆரம்பிக்குது. ஸோ அது ஃப்யூச்சராக நம்ம நிறைய சுற்றும்போது என்ன ஆகுது அப்படின்னா நம்மளோட பேரண்ட்ஸ் தான் ஃபஸ்ட்டு எனக்கு ஒரு ஆர்டிஸ்ட்டாக படுறாங்க. ஸோ என்னோடய கேரியரில் ஒரு ஸ்டார்டிங் ஸ்டேஜில் ஒரு என்ன சொல்கிறது ஒரு பிள்ளை எப்படி கேரி பண்ணி அவங்க எடுத்துகிட்டு வர ஒரு லைஃப் ஸ்டைல் இருக்குது இல்லை, அந்த லைஃப் ஸ்டைல் என்னோட ஒரு ஆர்ட்டாக பட்டுச்சு. ஸோ அதுதான் இன்றைக்கி நான் நிறைய ட்ராவல் பண்ணி கனெக்ட் பண்ணி ஒர்க்காக கன்வே பண்ணிகிட்ருக்கேன்.
The next thing which I would like to ask all three of you is, how important do you think drawing and sketching is as part of your art education in the college? And how does it help in your creativity if you are basically very good in your drawings?
since even when you enter the college, they talk about a line a lot. So, but for me, the experience I had in the printmaking was totally a different experience, because I have to start working with the negative space to bring the positive space. So you have to think of positive space in order to get the negative space working on. So you work vice versa. So in that case, after a point, I felt it was very, of course, you come across with different accidental stuff, and you learn from that and everything. But I felt it was very conscious act of approaching in certain sense, especially working with printmaking. So then after I did my 1 year of printmaking, and then I realized, no, I don't want to do this. And I quit that year. Again, I rejoined in painting. So for me, this consciousness of working was also, which I don't wanted to do that in particular sense. So mostly that's what I'm trying to say. I don't want to plan work, but there is always, yeah. So but there is always one kind of a scratch line it comes to you. Whether you in the form of writing or in the form of basics sense, I transfer all the time in the work, in the sketchbooks. You always carry that, which you keep writing or you keep drawing. So sometimes it not necessary it has to convey as a work immediately, but later I will use it. Or I just always look and I myself discuss that with me, but it's not necessary it has to convert as a work, but I do that as a practice of writing and drawing as well. But I'm trying to say this, I don't change that as a planned work, but I draw that all the time, because for me to understand anything, I need kind of exercise, or to understand that I wanted to transfer that. In that way, I keep doing that as a regular practice of exercise.
Is this working? Yeah, that's fine. How I see drawing is, I think as you started, I think I had to just go back a bit, like, the sort of training that Madras School of Arts, or the emphasis on drawing was there for a very long time. And I've seen some, even when Roy Chaudhary took over as the principal, when there is this idea of Indian art, and there was of course this academic realism was also taught in the college, but there was this they were trying to this comes with this identity where they wanted to be, they wanted to know what is being an Indian is, and as an artist how you react. So so they got this idea that Indian art has more emphasis on drawing. When they when you look at Ajanta, when you look at any of these murals and even sculptures, when you look at Mamallapuram, or this is the beauty of Indian art is mostly on the way they have drawn the line. I mean, even on a sculpture. So the Chola bronzes, for example. So this emphasis, I think that this pedagogy, like, the emphasis on line, I think it would have started, what I feel that would have started during the Roy Chaudhary's period, because I've seen lots of Dhanapal sir's work, which there's beautiful line drawings, ink, brush line drawings are there. And this continued in the 60s. So, when I was there in the college, this sort of thing that automatically comes to you, because that's the education which is there. And when you look at our college, there is this using newsprint, very thin paper, newsprint paper and charcoal, and you do drawings of that portrait, and so this emphasis on drawing was always there. And when I started to paint, when I started to paint in the sense of my creative painting, what I used to do is I used to do a drawing fully, first in charcoal completely, and then fill it with colors. And if you look at all these Madras artists, this sort of a method is there. I mean, if you look at the early works. So there is this very strong drawing, and then the color comes in between. The color, of course, plays some part, but not the way the line plays. The line plays the major part. So, so that's there in the college as an education, but also in the practice. And that's how our creative painting also developed from line. So the space, I usually left the space empty, and then the drawing would what I would emphasize, even with color. So so the drawing played a major part, and I think it still does. And I also, at least 1/4 of the room, I have some of my students are there. So I also insist them that the importance of drawing, and then I keep them in drawing for almost 4 years, if it's possible. So that's so I think that's very important. Drawing is as a discipline, but also drawing is a direct connection between your thinking process. That's the one which connects you directly from your where you change the visual perception. When there's a visual experience that you have, and you change it, the immediate one is the drawing. What we do is immediately change it to a drawing, and the color and the texture and all comes later. So, and we also react to drawing immediately. And that's why I think the drawing, Madras, the importance of Madras school is the drawing, because they understood what works. And yeah, thanks.
ஸோ என்னோட ஒர்க்லேயும் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா வந்து ட்ராயிங்ஸ் தான் நிறைய விஷயங்கள் தான் கனெக்ட் பண்ணியிருப்பேன். ஸோ என்ன அப்படின்னா, இப்போ நம்ம ஒரு பொருளை பார்க்குறோம் அப்படின்னா கலர்ஸ்ன்னு ஒன்று இருக்குது, கலர்ஸாகவும் வைப்போம். அப்போ ப்ளஸ் என்ன அப்படின்னா, ஒரு அவுட்ரான ஃபார்ம் எப்போவுமே ஒரு பொருளுக்கு இருந்துகிட்டே இருக்கும். ஸோ அது வந்து நம்ம லேட்டராக தான் அது தெரிய வருது. ஸோ எப்போவுமே வந்து அந்த அவுட்ரான ஒரு ஃபார்ம் இருக்குல்ல, ஒரு கலரை நம்ம மேலே வைக்கிறோம் அப்படின்னாலும் இன்னொரு கலர் கீழே லேயராக வைக்கிறோம் அப்படின்னா, இந்த கலருக்கும் இந்த மேலே இருக்க கலர்ஸ்க்குமான ஒரு அவுட்லைன் ஃபார்ம் இருக்குதுல்ல, அது லைனாக தான் கன்சிடர் ஆகுது. ஸோ அந்த லைனுன்ற ஒரு ட்ராயிங் இருக்குல்ல, இது இப்போ வந்து என்ன சொல்கிறது, இப்போ பழனியப்பன் சாரோட ஒரு ட்ராயிங்கோட லைன்ஸாக இருக்கலாம், இப்போ சந்துரு சாரோட லைன்ஸாக இருக்கலாம். ஸோ இது எல்லாமே வந்து என்னென்னா எங்கேருந்து இன்ஃப்ளூயன்ஸாக வருது அப்படின்னா, காலேஜில் இருந்த ஒரு முனுசாமி சார், அப்புறம் ப்ளஸ் வந்து சந்தானராஜஸோட லைன்ஸ், இதெல்லாமே வந்து அவங்க ஃபாலோ பண்ணி கொண்டு வந்துட்டு ஒரு சர்டன் பீரியடில் வந்து அவங்கள்ட்ட நம்ம எடுக்கும்போது என்ன ஆகுதுன்னா, அடுத்த ஒரு ஈஸியான ஒரு மூமெண்ட்டாக தான் நான் வந்து இதை பார்க்குறேன் லைன்ஸு.
So as inheritors of the Madras line, and as post Madras art movement effect, what do you think you are doing in your works today? Is line still a very important element? Is it still something you would like to use it as an expression for your emotions, sentiments, or just to describe, or for various other purposes? So the play of line, how important is it, what you have inherited from your art education?
For me, line is also a skeleton. A line is also invisible for anything. So it is, for me, it is not directly it has to be line, but there is line. It is n numbers of line for each object or each figures, because for me it's a process. When you work on a process, it's not the one line you want to work, because you the duration of encounters you have with the work or with the time or with your personal experience, it kind of applies in the work as well when you process. So the line is keep changing. It is keep shifting within itself. It's not the same line, but it's the line which travels within itself. It's a kind of infinity. It becomes after a point. So it is there in certain sense, but not the whole for me. Because one line, when you cut or when you cross this line by overlapping the line, because sometimes certain things I'm very scared to break. That fear is there till now. I can't break few things, but I enjoy restoring things. So that's where I kind of make it into that line into So that's how I see line. So not necessarily it has to be the physical line. The line within itself is the line I see. So for me, the line was something else now.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful way of expressing line.
So if you see the Madras school, I mean the Madras school is not very painterly in that sense, like it's because we lean far towards the drawing side, the composition side. So so trained here, and then the way you evolve looking at the others' work, and the way when you create your own art language, you tend to, I mean, you cannot escape that sort of a thing. So I see the entire thing as a line and composition. Even if I use color, it is what I see is the line and line, and the color is basically for me is like a tone. I don't use it as a color. So one is that, so see, thing is like and also look at even when I have to the artist I like, say like Picasso or Goya, or or even say William Blake and all that. So I always look at artists who are very good in drawing, or who were their main work was in drawing, like they, even if Picasso painted, but then his work is more is more towards line. Even say for example Van Gogh, though he painted, but it's really it's a drawing basically. So I think I am tuned, or maybe all Madras has the same thing, like you're tuned towards, or you gravitate towards what has a stronger composition and line. And that's how your work also, the way you try to express is also through lines. So I see it part, because of my training, also because of the influences, and I am part of all these. Like I'm not an individual one. I have all these things affects you in your work. So that's how I see my work.
ஸோ என்னோடய ஒர்க்கில் வந்து ட்ராயிங்காக வந்து நான் பார்க்குறதுன்னா ஃபஸ்ட்டு ஒரு ஸ்டடியான ஒரு ட்ராயிங் இருக்குதுல்ல. இப்போது நான் லாஸ்ட்டாக பண்ண ஒரு ஷோவில் வந்து பார்த்திங்கன்னா ஒரு லைன்ஸை வந்து நான் நிறையா பார்க்குறேன், ஒரு காற்றா பார்க்குறேன். மீன்ஸ் என்னென்னா வந்து நம்ம இப்போ வந்து சுவாசத்துலேருந்து மூலாதாரம் வரை இருக்குதுல்ல. ஒரு நாள் நம்ம சாப்பிட்டுட்டு வந்து நம்ம வந்து கக்கா போகல அப்படின்னா என்ன ஆகுது அப்படின்னா நம்ம பாடியே வந்து ரொம்ப நாரி போயிடுதுன்னு வச்சிங்களேன். ஸோ அப்போது நம்மளோட பாடியோட லைன்ஸ் என்னவாக இருக்குன்னா சுவாசமாக தான் இருக்குது. அப்போ காற்றுக்கும் இதுக்குமான நம்ம அவுட்லைனுக்குமான ஒரு கனெக்ஷன் இருக்குதுல்ல. ஸோ அதை லைனாக பார்க்குறதுக்கான ஒரு ட்ராவலாக தான் நான் வந்து லைனை வந்து இப்போ கன்சிடர் பண்ணிகிட்ருக்கேன்.
So here we have very interesting interpretation of the line. While Benita sees it as more of a philosophical line, Aparajitan sees it as more academic, physical line, and even Vijay sees it as more philosophical and a metaphorical line. So line as such, has always played a very important role. And when we are talking of line, then we are obviously talking only of drawing and sketching. And that is, the artist trying to put down what is there in the imagination physically into what is there as a sketchbook or a paper or whatever. Now, my question will be, line as such, what do you think line is today now, if I can ask you as an opinion among other artists, who have passed out of this historical institution, that is the College of Arts and Crafts. How do you think they are still utilizing drawing as a basis, or do you think that the computer has taken over and that computer does everything for them?
I just want to say before one thing, and then I'll come to you. I think 2008 when this Chennai Sangamam happened, Sharon asked a couple of artists to respond to this entire program. So myself, Prasanna, Shiva and all, we were running around and looking at different places, all the performance. After that, we are supposed to do some work and give it to them. After seeing n numbers of performance of theatre, dance and everything broken, We literally my mind was something else. I really couldn't work. And then when we were discussing, we were all talking, and then I thought, okay, let me do something. Later that became kind of exercise, because somebody is asking you to do something. No, it became kind of exercise for me itself. So I was trying to mark wherever I went every day. So I took a Madras map and I started drawing the line where what we did during that few days. So I made mark of the lines, and then I found this line of Palniyappan. And I enjoyed Palniyappan's work before, but I don't know what I was enjoying. But when I was trying to do something else to understand that, or I was trying to struggle with something, and I found to see somebody's work. That's how I started. I was so much connected that day to his work. I didn't know, before that I didn't know what I was seeing in his work. I never had this question of what am I looking, or after that we used to discuss, all the time we used to discuss, but I don't know what we were talking. But that's the first time I'm realizing of my experience through to see somebody's work. So that always happens with you in certain sense. So that was one thing. And now, of course, there are artists who are continuously non-stop working, like Natesh and all. They stop drawing. They have to work. So it varies with people, but they still believe, they still cherish, and that is what we are still sitting and talking about this in the very moment. Because even it's about Santhan Raj also, when we used to see different artists from various places, they're talking about his teaching, and they're all retired teachers from as a student of him, but they're all retired, but still they're cherishing this line. So this kind of memory is also, it's just not left behind. That is itself a thread. It is a drawing by itself. It stands. Of course, everything is taken over, but the experience of being there and looking at the work and talking about it, or experience that and share with everyone, is there. So all this technology will come and go, but this will stand, like as if you are some thing which is kept in between, which everything passes, but it's there still, So this is unending thing, or everlasting or unvanished thing, which will keep alive. So it will be there.
I mean, see, if you talk about technology and when you hands-on, when you draw, I think that is not going to go. I mean, when you look at from prehistory to till now, I mean, drawing has been almost for 30,000 years. Drawing has survived in the sense, because what I said, it's connected to your perception. When you want to convert a visual experience onto a paper or onto a canvas or whatever, then what you do is immediately you see, and what you see is only a line. So the drawing is not going to vanish. It is part of our human's intelligence. I think it is not going to go. But how, I really don't know about the evolution of Madras School after the 2000, because I'm not too aware. Artists are there, but I think the trajectory in the 50s, 60s, and then later in the 80s, and even till say 90s, I think that idea of Indian art, and then where you look at lots of you go to lots of temples and visit temples and do lots of drawings, and so always looking at Indian art to it was part of the education at that time, but it was not a formal education. It was very informal. But then the discussions were all around it. I doubt whether it sort of extended beyond 2000, because by then lots of teachers had left, and but it's as a practice it is there. I think that is very important. You cannot skip drawing and then you cannot go to anything. This drawing becomes the fundamental of everything. So I think that way of drawing is going to be very important.
ஸோ என்னோட காலேஜ் டைமில் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ட்ராயிங்ஸோட இது வந்து இப்போது சிஸ்டமேட்டிக்காக நிறைய வர ஆரம்பிச்சு. ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸுக்கு வந்து அனிமேஷனாக இருக்கலாம், ப்ளஸ் வந்து ஒரு வேக்கம் பேடில் வந்து ட்ராயிங் பண்ணுறதா இருக்கலாம், எல்லாமே ஈஸியாக மாற ஆரம்பிக்குது. ஸோ இப்போது என்னென்னா வந்து இப்போது சென்னை அப்படின்னு ஒரு சிட்டியோட பாயிண்ட் ஆஃப் வியூவில் நம்ம பார்க்கும்போது அது எல்லாமே எல்லாருக்குமே ஈஸியாக கனெக்ட் ஆகிற ஒரு இதுவாக இருக்குது. ஸோ இன்னொரு ஊர்லேருந்து ஒரு ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் வந்து படிக்கிறாங்க அப்படின்னா இதெல்லாம் வாங்கி அவனுக்கு ட்ரை பண்ணுறதுக்கான ஒரு எக்கனாமிக்கலான ஒரு சோர்ஸே அவன் கையில் இருக்காது. ஆனால் இன்றைக்கி ஸோ இப்போ ட்ராயிங்காக வந்து நம்ம வந்து ஒரு பேப்பரில் பண்ணுறதுக்கும் ப்ளஸ் வந்து ஒரு வேக்கம் பேடில் பண்ணுறதுக்கும் ஈக்குவலான ஒரு சென்ஸாக தான் போயிட்டுருக்கு. ஸோ எல்லாமே என்ன அப்படின்னா அவங்களோட ஒரு ஐடியாலஜியில் ஏதோ இந்த கரண்ட்டு கூட கனெக்ட் பண்ணி ஒர்க் பண்ணுற ஒரு மூமெண்ட்டும் வந்து இட்ஸ் அ குட் திங்ஸாக தான் நான் பார்க்குறேன்.
Actually, I would like to say that these are three students of College of Arts and how important drawing is for them. But this is something I would like to tell the students of art who are studying in other institutions, that without drawing you are nowhere. It is only drawing which establishes your identity, it establishes your creativity, it gives you need to have the skills in that. As a teacher, over 35 years, I still continue to be a teacher. It has been my experience that in the 2000s, when we entered the 21st century, students were just not interested in spending their time and their hard work on drawing, but rather they were more interested what the computer can give them. So I also always used to tell them, what will the computer give you? Where is your hand? The hand is on the mouse, and who's dictating that mouse? You are dictating. So without you having the basic skills in drawing, is it possible for you to just go to the computer and say that the computer will provide everything for me? Now this is a kind of a utopian existence for many of the students who want to get away from drawing or who don't have the skills of drawing. And this is what is very important, because I know many young students who suddenly say, I'm an abstract artist. How can you be an abstract artist without going through the process of figuration, essentializing your drawings, essentializing your work, and then coming to an abstract, like the way Achyutan had done, and many of the artists had done. What a fantastic process that is. But the students fail to realize that. So now I want to ask all three of you, what would you like to tell the students of today as far as drawing is concerned, as an exercise, mental exercise, as a health, what do I call it? Health exercise, healthy mental exercise for them to be truly creative artists in any field, whether it is finance or whether it is design, textiles, commercial art, whatever.
In that case, of course, the continuous, constant practice of line is very, very important, because as you all said, it has to be converted immediately. Whatever you see, or whatever you experience, that to convert now or later, it has to be a thing which is you cherish as a line is very important. So in that case, line is very, very important to take it further, because when unless and until you don't do that, whether it is a scribble or a line or a drawing or anything, it won't stay in your mind. At least to have that memory, it has to be transferred.
See, drawing is the simplest thing one can do, like just take a paper and it could be a pencil, a charcoal. That's the simplest thing. And if one is able to express, able to do even a simple drawing, able to express with the simplest tool, then for them the unlimited is very easy. I would give an example of my father, Adimullam. He took a decision when he was in college or just after college, that he would continue to draw. Like, he was not tempted to go into painting. So, he sort of said, it's easy, color is very tempting, you just can, it's very rich and very tempting. But then he decided, he said that I'll do a drawing, and he did continue drawing till the age of 40 before he went into color. So, And then when he went into color, it was an explosion. It was like just like it exploded like slow. Color, like there's no limitation. Then he went into complete abstraction. From figuration, he went into complete abstraction, but only through the process of drawing. So I think drawing is it's a beautiful experience, and I think it's a discipline. If you can stick to it for a long time, and your ability to think, ability to be creative, you'll be a very strong as an artist. Yeah.
ஸோ என்னென்னா வந்து ட்ராயிங் வந்து ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் தான். இப்போ வந்து என்னோட கெரியரில் நான் பார்த்தேன்னா டைரி எடுத்துகிட்டு நான் பாட்டு ட்ராவல் பண்ணுவேன். ஸோ நிறைய சீனியர்ஸ் கூட டிஸ்கஷன் நடக்கும். அதே டைம் வந்து அவுட்டோர் ட்ராயிங் பண்ணுவோம். வெளியே போயிட்டு வந்து ஒரு பொருளை பார்த்து நம்ம வந்து அப்சர்வ் பண்ணி ட்ராயிங் பண்ணுறோம்ல. ஸோ அதிலிருந்து இப்போ வந்து நமக்கு ஒரு எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் கிடைக்கும். இன்னும் ஒரு 10 இயர்ஸுக்கு அப்புறம் அந்த லைன் என்னவா மாறுதுன்றதுக்குல்ல. ஸோ அது லைவாக நம்ம போயிட்டு ஒரு ட்ராவலில் வந்து கனெக்ட் பண்ணும்போது அந்த லைனை வந்து நம்ம வந்து என்ன சொல்கிறது, அடுத்த ஒரு நான் ஹிமாலயா போகும்போது நான் ஒரு ட்ராயிங் பண்ணேன். ஆக்சுவலி வந்து ஹிமாலயா மேலே இருந்துட்டு எனக்கு ஒரு யோசனை என்னவா இருந்ததுன்னா, கோடுகள் வெளி வெற்றிடமின்றி நகர்ந்து கொண்டே இருக்குது அப்படின்ற மாதிரி. ஸோ இந்த நம்ம ஒரு இடத்த கொடுக்க ஆரம்பிக்கிறோம் அப்படின்னா அது வந்து இன்னும் ஸ்பேஸை வந்து நம்ம கொடுத்துட்டே இருக்குது அப்படின்றது. ஸோ வந்து நம்ம ஒரு இடத்துல இருக்கிறத காட்டிலும் இன்னொரு இடத்துல நகர்ந்துட்டு போயிட்டே இருக்கும்போது நிறைய விஷயங்கள் நம்மளுக்குள்ள ஒரு நேச்சர் வந்து நமக்கு நிறைய அலோவ் பண்ணிகிட்ருக்கு. ஸோ வந்து எல்லாருக்கும் வந்து அதுதான் சொல்லுவேன். ஸோ நம்ம வந்து கீப் மூவ் பண்ணும்போது வந்து லைன்ஸும் நம்ம கூட மூவ் ஆகிட்டுருக்கும் அப்படின்றது தான்.
So thank you all three of you for, to discuss on line itself is quite something, because that's the most elemental. As a matter of fact, I had curated an exhibition at Art House, which I had titled it as Dot, Dash and Line. And how amazingly the artists were, they came out with their creative ideas of just using the dots or the dash or the line completely. So it is that important that this is where you start with a dot and end up as a line. So thank you, Benita, Aparajitan and Vijay, for your, bringing forth your ideas, which I'm for sure will also help the students. And the very, premise of College of Arts is drawing. And that was there from the very beginning. So thank you very much for a very patient hearing. And now I open it up to the audience if you have any questions.
Is there anyone who wants to ask a question?
I'd like to start off with a question. It's addressed to any of the artists can answer. One has seen a lot of the work of the Madras school, and been, as Prathana said, at the end of the day, it's given us so much of enjoyment. But one of the anxiousness is also the fact that we've done very little documentation. Ashrafi, seems to be been almost single-handedly done a lot of it. So how does one bridge that gap? Because unless there is documentation, there's writing about the works and the school, it will not get established. There's a break that happens, like you asked about. Does the line still exist as an important aspect of the pedagogy of the school? There's a break that might have happened. So how does one encourage art writing? Do any of you think that's very important? And if so, then how does one bridge that gap as well? Not just the art making, but also the art, writing about the art.
Yeah, I think one major drawback in the Madras school is we lack an artistry department, which, if we had an artistry department, we have an artistry as a subject, but we don't have an artistry department where, one could archive. Even students' work are so important, when they do, it's better, the college should have a documentation of students' works too. It's not just because, one who passes out and becomes a big artist and the documentation is there. But the student work itself is so important because, that's what is happening in the college. So I think there are lots of things that we have missed. I think the documentation is a bit okay from the 60s onwards. But the crucial period of, Dev Prasad Rai Chaudhary's period, from 1928 to 1958, that's a very, very important period in Madras Art School, because that's where you have all these who later became big teachers, masters, and they were the students at that time. So the documentation around that period is very poor, and we need more light on it. The importance of preserving the work, I keep telling my students too, to preserve the work, keep the work properly, and then later when you, after 10 years when you look back, that that's how you look back at what you have done, and again looking back helps because it helps you in your work. When you look back and then you look what you have done, and then it gives you better ideas, newer ideas. So it's a continuous thing. I think somewhere we have to start. It's better to start.
Talking of documentation, let me tell you what a Herculean task it was for me to do my research. When I started out, I couldn't get anything on anybody anywhere. I started off with Sharon Apparao, and she says, yes, I have a few catalogs here and there, and she gave me that. Then I went to I had to document the history of the school, because it was the locus of the school which provided the emergence of modernity in Madras, in the south. Otherwise, there would have had been no modernity at all. So when I researched the school history in the archives, there was enough documentation, letters, etc., written by various administrators, which said what kind of students, why these students, why craft was important, and all that. And then later when that was an important aspect of it. But then when I started looking after the 60s, there was nothing much. Then the Cholamandal artist village was founded. So when I went there, I was able to get, a few paper cutouts, what they had preserved. And, they were huge, like the paper size itself, they had documented. They had preserved. For me, I developed neck pain, I developed back pain. How do you go through that kind of a documentation, which is just, paper cutouts which are put there and pasted. And, you had to get the material out there. And the worst and the best part of it was, or the aspect of my research was meeting the artists. None of them had anything documented. None of them had anything documented, except a few, who were very meticulous in the way, they had put their works. Every studio I visited, used to be a kind of going into a forest of art, where, the canvases were just dumped in one room. And then, I used to feel so bad because the artist, would have to pull it out. And he says, no, don't worry. I will get all the works. So he would pull out all the earlier works. Some of them never had any works. Some of them, the sketchbooks were not available. They said, nothing is there. Now, the best documentation I ever got was what Panikkar had started as a magazine. The art magazine, which he started, Art Trends. It is in that Panikkar had documented not only what was happening among all the artists here, but also across India. So even today, I still say that there are many galleries who just don't document. There has to be a critical essay on the artist. 10 years down the line, if somebody wants to do any of the research on these three artists, where will they go? Of course, they will go to the artist. But if they have shown at galleries, the galleries need to have that kind of documentation, which is never there. And it is something I have been fighting with the artists, and I have been also fighting with the galleries that please have documentation. At least, document their works. If you don't want to give a critical essay on their artworks, at least document their works so that, anybody researching will know how, every year or every 5 years how the artist has shown. So, yes, documentation is extremely important, and every artist has to document the works. So, thank you very much. We close the session now.
School of Arts and Crafts and Industrial Art, and now it's called as College of Fine Arts. Government College of Fine Arts, okay. So what is the status of the craft in the college?
They've thrown the crafts out by saying it as Government College of Fine Arts. When it started, it was known as the Madras School of Arts. Then it started as a Madras School of Industrial Arts, which came together in 1852.
Right.
Then it continues as Madras School of Arts and Crafts. Later on it came to that because craft was the only thing which was happening, and that continued. 1962, because they wanted to give it an academic status, they said we'll make it into a government, College of Arts and Crafts, Government College of Arts and Crafts. So craft continued for a long time. Then finally, in 1962, it was converted. In 1997, they changed it completely just to Government College of Fine Arts. And I don't know how much of craft is happening there, because more subjects which are relevant today, like visual communication, textile designing, all of these are now being offered there.
I would like to, because I feel craft, like you mentioned, craft was a very important thing. And how College of Arts and Crafts had been an inventory for museums across to identify what is real, what is authentic, what is what. And I personally feel it should be College of Arts and Crafts, and that legacy also should come back. And because at a very initial stage, it was identified by someone, the craft has got so much of creativity or skill or whatever, the use of material, and it was brought into education and it survived. Yes, it's gone now and it's completely gone, and I think for me personally, I'm not able to accept it. Anyway, thank you. Yeah.
Craft is the very basis of our Indian art, and it's on the basis of handicrafts, which Panikkar decided that, students should learn in the 1960s. See, in the 1960s, he had a very, very, intelligent, dedicated, enthusiastic, committed, passionate students, who would do anything. And Panikkar was a person, including Dhanapal. I would also bring in Dhanapal within the same bracket to say how, these were two artists who really inspired the students. Panikkar, told the students, use your craft, use the craft that is available in the workshops in the college and contemporize it. And that is what they started doing. Then batik was introduced, and batik became a big hit. Then he started, holding exhibitions of these crafts, which were created by the students with a contemporary feel. And they sold immediately because it had both tradition and modernity in those craft works that were produced. Those exhibitions were the ones which, brought Panikkar the seed money to buy land in Injambakam to create the artist community. It was craft. But today, craft seems to have no value. As a matter of fact, in Shantiniketan, Nandalal Bose had started this craft fair, where he would encourage the students to go out to the tribals and, work with them and, rejuvenate their art so that it is more contemporary. K.G. Subramaniam started the same thing in Baroda, the Kala exhibition, and that is how we have, Mrinal Mukherjee, who was actually a painting student, took to creating works in jute. So that is what the craft is all about, and that is where even K.G. Subramaniam, said that it is only the craft tradition which helps the students in many more creative ways of thinking. The craft itself is such. Thank you.
On behalf of DakshinaChitra, I would like to thank the panelists for taking us back in time and giving greater insights into the art pedagogy in the Madras School, and to everyone here who's come and patiently waited and listened to this beautiful discussion. We hope you are a part of more such discussions in DakshinaChitra in the future. Now we will proceed to the Varaja Gallery, where the three artists will be giving a very brief walkthrough on their featured works and their process. Thank you.
I tend to use a text. So this is about, this title of this is called Underground. The title I took from Dostoevsky's Notes on Underground, because underground is also a psychological state, and it can also be physical. So, but as a painting, you need to depict a physical world, right? It's a physical world. However you do it, it's a physical world that you try to represent. So this painting is about a person underground, like. So and it's sort of an experience. What even during the discussion I was talked about how you convert first comes the experience. The experience is like how do you even actually arrive the experience is because of the training that you have. So nobody trains you, getting into a set of experiences. But everybody goes through, like life, everybody morning to evening, everybody goes through the same sort of happiness. We have rejections and things like that. So, but everybody goes through, every human is same. It doesn't change from person to person. But what does the artist do is his ability to transfer that into some sort of a visual, that becomes a communication. So this experience of being underground, then I try to convert it into a painting. So that was also a problem. Then I got the feeling this hand inverted as we were going into this. The whole place was very rough. And then to supplement this, I added animal figures which also go into some sort of hibernation. Okay, so that's how I support this. So it has to become a language. Right? I have an experience like it's also aesthetic, but then it's also language. So together, that's how painting works.
I did installation also. I worked with this exhibited in the Weavers space. So I normally I do a lot of still life as a practice. So for me, still life is a teacher as well. So whenever I get an object or whenever I come across things, I keep it in my table. I make sure I exercise that and I try to understand that. So in form of anything, drawing or rendering or sculpting or anything, I convert that. So most of the time, I always like to work with a smaller to bigger, bigger to smaller. For me, to touch and hold is always, which is very fascinating. And this artist called Asma, she gifted me a book of rice paper when I came out of the college. So this book was, see that time as Prathna was saying, this reworking, and it's not like when you work on this reworking, it's not like you doubt the work for me. So it's not like you are kind of improvising. Sometimes I leave it, the marks, the stain, the whatever I did underneath that, I wanted to see that. So when I got this paper, the paper gave me the feeling of you can see through it. It's like you see through it. That kind of a sense I had. So before that, we used to have these Nepali or Chinese or Korean papers are very transparent, handmade pulp papers. So before that, I was using a stain in the work with the tea stain and coffee stain and all as a main color. I didn't use much color then. I was using that only stain of a tea or a coffee or a particular roots in the work. So just I was staining the papers. For me, the staining is also about the monthly cycle or the gestation, how you convert in the work. So the stain became essential in that time. So I started cutting those stains so that I kind of accumulate them in one piece, because otherwise how would I gather a stain over the period. So it became a mark. The mark became a circle. Then I started cutting the papers to make the stain. So that's how it became a kind of a chanting process, because it's not you tear this side by hand individually and kind of overlap it. So that time I come across, you work with nature so much, so there is this kind of reference of bird and kite and everything. It kind of
overlap, because after I told these papers, I accumulated, became like a feathers for me. So then the image converted into a human like a bird. So that's how work was developed, but it is not like pre-planned. So I did this sketch and then kind of overlapping it. So that's how it's a process work. It's not like, along with that I did 2-3 works which I think is not here in this exhibition, but I made a large seed pot of a cotton seed, and then I made this kind of homage to weavers. I made this entire installation in the space, so it's part of this, and one more seed work which I collected in the trees called Tecoma seeds. It's a flying seed, I use that. The parallel work, I use that as work. So I just use a glue and a stretched canvas, paper and glue. I didn't use much. Of course I used basic drawings, and again I covered with that, you can see through, because I don't cover and, you know, how to say, I don't want to make it finished, or, you know, it is very deliberate in a certain sense, because that's the process I wanted to do. For me, everything is unfinished, or everything can be reworked, or everything can be, it's not like uncertainty, but for me it's a process. So always the process is there with you, with the different fragments. So, on material as a process of what you're working as well. So it's a part of that series of work.
Actually, 2013 வந்து கேம்ப் அட்டெண்ட் பண்ணேன். ஸோ அந்த கேம்பில் உள்ள ஒர்க்ஸ் தான் இது. ஸோ இது ஃபஸ்ட்டு இங்கே வந்து வுட்டு வாங்கிட்டேன். ஸோ அவங்க வந்து பர்டிகுலராக வந்து வுட்டில் தான் பிரிண்ட் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்ற ஒரு விஷயத்த வந்து எனக்கு சொல்லியிருந்தாங்க. ஸோ 2 days வந்து நான் இங்கே சுற்றிட்டே இருந்தேன். சுற்றிட்டு வந்து திடீர்னு பீச்சுக்கு போனேன். பீச் போயிட்டு என்னன்னா அந்த டைமில் வந்து ஒரு லவ் சீரியஸ் ஆஃப் ஒர்க் நான் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தேன். ஸோ இப்போ இது வந்து நிலாவோட ஒரு ஷேப். ஆக்சுவலி 2 பாடி வந்து எவ்வளோ தூரம் வந்து ஷீக்குள்ளே போக முடியும், அவ்வளோ தூரம் ஃப்ளெக்சிபிளாக வந்து அந்த போனால் அந்த மூமெண்ட் எப்படி இருக்கும் அப்படின்றத வந்து ட்ராயிங்காக வந்து கன்வே பண்ணிவிட்டு, ஸோ இது என்னென்னா வந்து ஒரு ஷீக்குள்ளே போகும்போது ஒரு ஃபிஷ்ஷோட மூமெண்ட் வந்து வெளியே இருக்க ஒரு ஃபிஷ் வந்து அவுட்டில் வந்து வெளியே ஒரு என்ன சொல்கிறது, ஒரு கவிதை மாதிரியான ஒரு சென்ஸில் இருக்கிற ஒரு டெக்னிக்கலாக பார்த்தீங்கன்னா இந்த வுட்டோட டெக்ஸ்சர்ஸ் இருக்குதுல்ல. இப்போ பேசிக்காக வந்து நம்ம வுட்டில் பிரிண்ட் எடுப்போம் அப்படின்னா வந்து வுட்லேருந்து வர அந்த டெக்ஸ்சர்ஸ் எல்லாமே வந்து நிறைய விஷயங்கள் நம்ம டீச் பண்ணிக்கிட்டே இருக்கும். இப்போ பேட்டர்னாக நிறைய பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அதில் ஒரு லைன்ஸோட குவாலிட்டி நிறைய இருக்கும். ஸோ அதை எப்படி வந்து நம்ம பிரிண்டாக கன்வே பண்ணுறது அப்படின்ட்டு அந்த பிரிண்டோட குவாலிட்டி வந்து இதில் வந்து கன்வே பண்ணியிருக்கேன். ஸோ நெக்ஸ்ட்டு வந்து அந்த ஒரு 8 yearsக்கு அப்புறம் வந்து நெக்ஸ்ட் ஒரு கேம்புக்கு கூப்பிட்டுருந்தாங்க. ஸோ அப்போ இந்த சென்டரில் இருக்க ட்ராயிங்ஸ் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா இங்கே இருந்த ஒரு சின்ன ஒரு விதை ஆக்சுவலி, அந்த விதையை வந்து குட்டியாக வந்து ஒரு ட்ராயிங் பண்ணி, ஸோ ட்ராயிங் பண்ணது அப்போ ஒரு சீட் அப்படின்றது வந்து என்ன அப்படின்னா ஒரு மரம் ஆகுது. இந்த மரம் வந்து அவ்வளோ பெரிய விஷயத்தை கடத்திட்டே இருக்கும். ஒரு ஃப்ளவர் வரும், ஃப்ளவர் வந்து இன்னொரு விதை வந்து அது மூவ் ஆகிட்டே இருக்கும்ல. ஸோ அந்த மூவ் சென்ஸ் தான் வந்து இந்த டாட்ஸ். ஆக்சுவலி ஒவ்வொரு டாட்ஸுக்கும் உள்ளே வந்து ஒரு இங்கேருந்து நம்ம ஓப்பன் பண்ணனால தான் இந்த இடத்த பார்க்க முடியுதுல்ல. ஸோ ஒரு ஓப்பன் பண்ணுற ஒரு இடத்துலேருந்து அவ்வளோ வைடாக விரிஞ்சிட்டே இருக்கும் அப்படின்ற ஒரு சிங்கிள் பாயிண்ட்லேருந்து நிறைய சிங்கிள் பாயிண்ட்டு ஸ்டார்ட் ஆகிட்டே இருக்கும் அப்படின்றது தான் வந்து இந்த டாட்ஸோட சிம்பிளாக வந்து ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டேன். ஸோ இது பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ஜஸ்ட் இங்கே இருந்த ஒரு பழைய ஒரு வுட்டு தான். ஸோ அதுக்கு மேலே வந்து இதெல்லாம் வந்து இங்கே கார்ட்ஸ் இருக்கும், ஓல்டு கார்ட்ஸ் இருக்குது. இதில் வெறும் தின் பேப்பர்ஸில் நான் எதுவுமே மெட்டீரியலாக எதுவும் வாங்கலை. ஸோ இங்கேயே இருந்த பொருளை அப்படியே கலெக்ட் பண்ணிவிட்டு மேலே அப்படியே கீப் ஆன் ஒர்க் பண்ணேன். அவ்வளோதான்.
Anybody wants a translation or everybody's kind of